There are times where NBA teams reach a crossroads of where they have to decide what the direction is of their roster. They keep going down the path that they're currently on, or do they make a seismic shift that really change who and what the team fundamentally is? I got two teams today with two star-level players, one a superstar in Joel Embiid, that I think that their teams may have to start thinking about moving on from them for the betterment of the future of the franchise. We're going to talk about all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm one of the hosts here, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to talk about, and this is probably one of the craziest, I can't wait to see the responses to this video because people may think I'm completely off my rocker, right? And in no way am I saying that this is something that absolutely needs to be done, but it is something that I do think that these teams may start considering towards the end of the season, or well, the beginning of the offseason and before the start of next season. And that is that trading star players, right? When you look at it, I have two franchises here in the Philadelphia 76ers and the Charlotte Hornets. They have two very talented players that just can't seem to stay healthy. One in the Charlotte Hornets that hasn't really ever built anything really good around LaMelo Ball, but then again, could look to kind of rejigger that franchise. And one in the Philadelphia 76ers that actually has young and up-and-coming players that they could look to pivot and do something different around. We're going to talk about those teams today. I want to start off with the Philadelphia 76ers. This kind of thought got started in what Joel Embiid talked about, and it came out that he could have to have surgery rather at the end of the season and finish the season, or he could opt to have that surgery in the offseason, which could delay his start to the 2025-26 season. And while the Philadelphia 76ers season has been really defined by injuries and not having their three players, that core three on the court, I think either way, this team could look to make a move to break up that core three, whether any team wants to take Paul George or not, right? But I think the thing that the Philadelphia 76ers may have to get to, and they don't really want to get to this point, is considering trading Joel Embiid. And listen, this is not a knock on Joel Embiid and who he is as a player. When he's healthy and on the court, we know who and what Joel Embiid can be, and that's a dog. The problem is how often are you going to get Joel Embiid on the court? He's only played 16 games this season. This is after 39 games the year before that, 66 the year before that, and 68 the year before that. While he played 51 games each in 2020, 21, and 21-22, he played 68 games, which was the most of his NBA career in 2021-22. But then it's been just downhill from there. And while Joel Embiid is at this point on the other side of 30, right, young in real life, right, make no mistake about it, he turns 31 this March. He'll be 31 by the end of this season. And the thing that the Philadelphia 76ers, and one of the reasons why they're at this point to where they may feel comfortable in pivoting, is that Tyrese Maxey has clearly stepped up as the leader of that team. And just by the nature of him being more available, he's that team's best player most nights because he's available. He's played 45 games this season, 70 the last season, right? So he's missed some games himself, but he's far more healthy, far younger than what Joel Embiid is. And another player that actually has made me start thinking that this could be a possibility and something that they could look to do is they had an up-and-coming young player as well in Jared McCain at 20 years old that showed himself to be I think if the season would have maintained, he would have been the odds-on favorite to win Rookie of the Year, averaging 15 points per game. 2.6 rebounds, 2.4 assists on 46% shooting. But it's the energy around Jared McCain and the chemistry that he also shared with Tyrese Maxey. Now, that's a small backcourt to invest in, right? And there's make no mistake about that, right? But then you also added Quentin Grimes. Not to say that necessarily Quentin Grimes is part of your long-term future, right? We'll see what happens there. But the 76ers have a clear path to where if they move Joel Embiid, and make no mistake about it, even with his injury concerns, there are going to be teams that are interested in Joel Embiid. There are going to be teams that will convince themselves that they can build something around that team to where, hey, they still got enough even when Joel Embiid isn't healthy. And that's the question that you got to ask yourself. Now, trading for Joel Embiid's contract is not going to be easy for any team to do when you look at the $51 million he's getting this season and the $55 million he's slated to make next season. And while he does have, a contract extension that holds him out into the 2028-29 season, where he does have a player option in that year, this could be the time where the Philadelphia 76ers need to consider moving on from Joel Embiid. I would go so far as to say this. They're probably not going to keep their pick this year, right? We'll see. It has to be in the top 6. If they get some lottery luck, they can keep it. If the 76ers get a top 6 pick because they moved up in the lottery this year, I think that personally that solidifies it. Now, there is a world in which the 76ers look at that and say, well, we're adding another great talent. This is going to strengthen our case to have a really good team, even if Joel Embiid isn't healthy, and we can benefit from when he is, and that what could possibly make us a contender, right? And I can understand that, right? You want to go with the proven commodity, the proven thing. But I think that this is whether they make this decision this offseason or not, this is a decision that's facing this Philadelphia 76ers team that they can only look to avoid for so long. They tried it, right? They've tried multiple times to put something around Joel Embiid. Making the moves that they did this offseason was an attempt to make the moves to put a team that this is a team that could contend. And it isn't just all on Joel. I want to make that case clear, but throughout everything of trying to build around and bring veterans into this team, it's just been proven it's probably not going to work. And I think this core three of looking at Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid, I just don't know if you have the necessary runway to do that. Now, maybe they can make a different move, but I do think that this is the season where they should really, this offseason is really look at their options, maybe even shop Joel Embiid, and make a decision on what could be best for their franchise. And that's what this just comes down to. This isn't, like I said, to knock Joel Embiid. This is to look at what's the best for the long-term health of your franchise. Now, luckily, they've built this team in a way that where they're still going to avoid the second tax apron, right? Next year, they have $35 million below the second tax apron, 23 below the first tax apron. So they still got plenty of room to do some things. With most of their main cast locked in, they have to figure out some things with some other players and things like that. But I think overall, you're just looking at it like it may be that time where you may have to look to move on from Joel Embiid. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Am I tripping? Is building now around Tyrese Maxey, as he has now stepped up clearly as the leader of that team, is that something that they shouldn't do, or is that something that they should do? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. The next player to talk about in this is LaMelo Ball. And let me be clear here. I am a LaMelo Ball fan. I was somebody who actually picked the Charlotte Hornets to make the playoffs this year, mainly because I looked at it and said if they have a healthy LaMelo Ball, the last time they did that, they were a 41-win team. And this team theoretically had more talent on it than that team did then, right? Now, LaMelo's played 33 games this season. Cool. That's great. That's a nice portion of the Charlotte Hornets games, but he still has been wildly, hurt when it comes down to it, not available at the most point when they need it. And they do have a player that they can look to also pivot and do their build around, and that's Brandon Miller, right? Now, the thing about LaMelo is LaMelo's a lot younger than Joel Embiid is. He's only 23 years old, right? So there's still enough runway that if you really think that LaMelo is going to start being healthier, that you want to rock that thing and keep it going with him, Brandon Miller. Now that Mark Williams is back on the team after that trade was rescinded, right? And the thing with the Charlotte Hornets as well is that they have a pick that they could potentially keep this year. They're probably good on keeping, right? It's top 14 protected. They get to keep their own pick. If it falls out the top 14, that's when it will go to the Sacramento Kings. Because they're not slated right now to make the playoffs, the Charlotte Hornets are probably going to keep their pick, right? And that's kind of what a lot of this is built around. It's built around not only the young presence that they have here, but also the draft picks that they have coming up. Now, the benefit about the Charlotte Hornets as well is they own most of their own first-round picks outright going forward, so they can have a nice influx of young talent, whether they decide to move LaMelo Ball and get some more picks in that case, or if they decide to just keep the course and just keep adding young talent. The thing with the Charlotte Hornets are they've never really been a free agent destination. So them giving up somebody like LaMelo Ball would be a huge failure of that franchise because they have to usually draft their players, draft stars, if they really want to have them. So they sit in a little bit of a different situation. And while I love Brandon Miller, he's not yet shown what Tyrese Maxey has shown. He's a much younger player as well. And so the Charlotte Hornets have a different player. They can look to move Miles Bridges to get something back if they want to try to change up that roster, make a shift, right, and bring in some other talent. That's what they can look to do there. but I do think that they should at least explore what the options and possibility are. We live in a post-Luka Doncic trade world. And I think now living in that post-Luka Doncic trade world, it means that, hey, anything, and here's the thing, though. Most teams need to be smarter than what the Dallas Mavericks were and actually shop their stars and not just go with the first deal available. That's a story for another day. But I do think that it makes some sense for the Charlotte Hornets to potentially look to move on from LaMelo Ball as well and see what they can get back. I'm not as in on that as I am moving Joel Embiid. I think that, like I said, the 76ers need to look to make a seismic shift anyway. Is that Joel? I don't think you're going to get a lot back for Paul George. Is he trading more picks? The Hornets, I can see they just keeping the course, and eventually, hopefully, it works out because LaMelo's good. LaMelo's damn good, right? Now, he has some problems with some efficiency. He has some problems with, while he can score points, is it winning basketball? And that's the questions that the Hornets will have to ask themselves as well. But that's a question. A lot of teams have fallen in love with the stats, right? You got to ask yourself, what is winning? And the Charlotte Hornets haven't done a lot of winning in the history of their franchise. So them giving up somebody like LaMelo is a far different prospect than what the Philadelphia 76ers, since they have Tyrese Maxey there. But we'll see what the Hornets do. There's another team in this as well that may consider. Now, I don't think this one's as certain. I think with this team and the success that they're having this year in the Atlanta Hawks, right? They're 8th in the Eastern Conference right now. They're definitely gonna at least make the play-in. I don't see them. They've won 3 in a row. I don't see them falling out of like the play-in contention or anything like that. But as they've had young players in Jalen Johnson, who's out for the rest of the season, Dyson Daniels, who's one of the most, he'd probably be the most improved player of the year this year, right? And then also you do have Zachary Reshape. Now, Reshape started showing a little bit more here recently, right, which is really good for them. I think them moving DeAndre Hunter just opened up more opportunities for Reshape to just, it makes sense for him. And you look at him, again, he's starting to look a little bit more promising. There's still some questions on exactly how good he's going to be, but he's 19 years old, right? Now, Trae Young is even younger at 26 years old, so it would make some sense for them to still hold on to this thing all together. They seem like they're fitting, but the volume of shots that Trae Young takes, even though sometimes it's inefficient, is where they may have to look to do some other things with. I think that with all these teams that I'm mentioning here, they all can get back a haul for the players that I'm saying that they could look to move, right? And I think in the offseason, if you hear LaMelo, Trae Young, or Joel Embiid on the market, you're going to get a lot of teams that come in because they're going to convince themselves, rightfully so, over the talent that team has. Now, Trae Young has a $43 million contract, right? And the Atlanta Hawks are another team that they don't have their own draft pick. The San Antonio Spurs own that outright. So there's that aspect of it. Now, they do have the Lakers' first-round pick this year, and they could potentially have the Sacramento Kings' first-round pick if it isn't between 1 and 12. So the Atlanta Hawks have some things and tough decisions that they need to ask themselves as well. Now, if they don't give up that pick to Atlanta, to San Antonio, well, San Antonio's going to get it regardless. They have a chance to keep their own pick next year, right, with the pick swap with the San Antonio Spurs, and we'll see what happens there. But I do think that Atlanta also is in a place where they may have to look at what the future of their roster is going to be. I think they have another year, maybe even 2, before they absolutely have to make that decision. Make sure you know what Jalen Johnson is going to be consistently. Make sure you know what Zachary Reshape and Dyson Daniels are going to be consistently. But you have a nice young core of players, right, that are 23 and below, as far as in Jalen Johnson, 23 years old. Zachary Reshape, 19 years old, right? Dyson Daniels, 21 years old. And while Trae Young is not old, 26 years old, if they do decide, they literally extend their window, right? And they extend, the window. But you also got to look at it and say how much of Trae Young is the reason why you're in playoff contention right now, as well, that they have to ask themselves. So I think that you could see those 3 players that could potentially enter the trade market in this offseason that all could make sense for different reasons, depending on if their franchises finally decide to make a shift in direction. Will they? We'll see, right? But I do think that is something more so, and the team that I'm the most in on needing to make this decision is the Philadelphia 76ers. And I think when you look at what Daniel Morey has done there, you know anything is possible, right? I think that Daniel Morey is somebody who will look at, or Daryl Morey is somebody that will look at what they did with Luka and say, what can I get from Joel, right? And that may be the case there. But let me know what you guys think on everything down below. Am I crazy? Do you believe it? Do you think that these teams could look to trade these players? Or do you think that all these players are going to stay with their respective teams and the teams are going to keep looking to build around these guys as things go forward? Let me know what you think on that down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything NBA related. And I'll catch you guys on the next one, the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.